Marcus Coleman's hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. Pure white-hot rage. He stood in the executive office on the 47th floor of Sterling Global Solutions, staring at a contract with his name on it. Vice President of Operations. $340,000 a year. Corner office. Company car. Stock options. Everything he'd ever dreamed of. Everything that would change his daughter's life forever. And he was about to rip it in half. His boss, Vivian Sterling, the ice queen of corporate America, sat behind her massive desk watching him with those cold blue eyes. The same woman who, 72 hours ago, had stood in his kitchen wearing nothing but his dress shirt, her hair wet and wild, calling him sweetheart like they were lovers. The same woman who didn't know his name for 2 years. Who walked past his desk every single day like he was invisible, like he was nothing. She thought she could buy him. Thought a promotion would erase what happened that night. The fire, the smoke, him carrying her unconscious body down 12 flights of stairs while the building burned. Her breakdown in his apartment, her vulnerability, her humanity. She thought she could turn all of that into a transaction, package it up nice and neat with a salary and a title, and make it disappear. Marcus picked up the contract. Vivian leaned forward, confident, expecting him to sign. Instead, he tore it clean in half. The sound echoed through the office like a gunshot. Her face went white. "What are you doing?" His voice came out low and dangerous, something he barely recognized. "I quit." "You can't." "I just did." He dropped the pieces on her perfect desk and walked toward the door. She stood up, her composure cracking for the first time. "You're throwing away your career, your daughter's future. For what? Pride?" Marcus stopped, turned around, looked her dead in the eye. "No, Miss Sterling. For something you wouldn't understand. Dignity." And then he walked out, leaving behind the only job that kept his lights on, his rent paid, his daughter fed. All because the most powerful woman in Chicago made one critical mistake. She thought everything had a price. She thought everyone could be bought. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. But here's the thing. That wasn't even the craziest part of this story. Because 3 days later, Vivian Sterling showed up at his daughter's elementary school in Bronzeville, in front of everyone, with an apology that would change both their lives forever. And 6 months after that, Marcus would wake up again to the smell of coffee and find Vivian in his kitchen wearing that same shirt. Except this time, she wouldn't be his boss. She'd be his wife. The question is, how did a black single dad with nothing and a white billionaire CEO with everything end up here? How did one burning building and one terrible night lead to the kind of love story that nobody saw coming? Stick around, because what you're about to hear will restore your faith that some people can't be bought, some women can learn what really matters, and some mornings really do change everything. Hit that subscribe button right now if you want to see how this impossible story unfolds, because we're just getting started. Drop a comment right now telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. New York, Atlanta, Houston, LA, and type respect in all caps if you've ever had to choose between money and your principles. Let me see who's really locked in for this journey because it's about to get intense. Let's rewind. Go back to before the fire, before the shirt, before everything exploded. Marcus Coleman was 34 years old and he was a ghost. That's what it felt like anyway, working at Sterling Global Solutions in downtown Chicago. He wasn't just another employee. He was the man who kept the entire logistics department from falling apart. The one who redesigned shipping routes that saved the company $2 million last quarter. The one who stayed until midnight every Friday making sure containers cleared customs. Shipments arrived on time, and the billion-dollar machine kept running smooth. But none of that mattered to Vivian Sterling. To her, he was employee 4739. Sometimes logistics if she was feeling generous. Most times, she didn't call him anything at all because she never spoke to him, never looked at him. In 2 years, she'd walked past his desk maybe 300 times, past the photo of his daughter Amara in her pink backpack on the first day of second grade, past the world's best dad mug his mother gave him last Father's Day, past the small trophy from his college basketball days at Indiana State, back when scouts said he could go pro, back when his future looked different. Vivian Sterling never saw any of it. She saw numbers, quarterly reports, profit margins. Not people. Never people. Marcus told himself it didn't bother him. He had bigger things to worry about, like Amara, like being a single father in a city that didn't make it easy, like working a job that paid just enough to keep them in a one-bedroom apartment in Pilsen, with heat that only worked half the time, and a landlord who raised the rent every year. Like getting Amara to Washington Elementary by 7:45, getting himself to the office by 8:30, picking her up by 3:15, homework by 4, dinner by 6, bedtime by 8, then back to his laptop finishing work until midnight because there was always more work and never enough hours. 3 years ago, his wife Maya died. Cancer took her in 6 months flat. She was 28 years old. Amara was 5. And Marcus learned what grief really meant. Not the sad kind you see in movies. The kind that makes you forget how to breathe. The kind that wakes you up at 3 a.m. wondering how you're supposed to raise a daughter alone when you can barely keep yourself together. But he figured it out. He had to, because Amara needed him. And Marcus had made himself a promise standing at Maya's grave. He would not break. He would bend when he had to, but he would not break. That's what he taught Amara every single morning. We bend, baby girl, but we don't break. And she'd say it back to him with her little voice so fierce and determined, and Marcus would think maybe, just maybe, he was doing something right. Even if nobody else noticed. Even if he was invisible everywhere, except in his daughter's eyes. Vivian Sterling lived in a different universe. 38 years old, white, cold as Chicago in January. She inherited Sterling Global from her father at 28 and spent the next decade proving she earned it. Forbes called her a visionary. Employees called her the Ice Queen. She wore power suits so white they looked like armor and blood-red lipstick like war paint. Her blonde hair pulled back so tight it had to hurt. Nobody had ever seen her smile. Nobody had ever made her laugh. She lived in a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. She drove a Mercedes S-Class. She ate lunch at her desk. She fired people over email without a second thought. The rumor mill said she was heartless, that she chose the company over everything, over everyone, over any chance at a normal life. Nobody knew about the pill bottles in her desk drawer, the anxiety medication she took like candy, the panic attacks she hid in bathroom stalls during board meetings, the nights she woke up gasping for air in a penthouse that felt more like a prison than a palace. Nobody knew because Vivian Sterling had built her entire life around one principle. Never show weakness. Never let them see you break. Marcus and Vivian existed in the same building, the same company, the same city, but they lived in completely different worlds. He was invisible. She was untouchable. That's how it was supposed to stay. Then November 15th happened, and everything shattered. 11:47 p.m. Marcus was alone on the 12th floor, finishing a route analysis that would save Sterling Global another $1 million. Numbers on a screen. Ships crossing oceans. Containers full of goods moving from Shanghai to Long Beach to distribution centers across the Midwest. It was the kind of work that made him feel useful, even if nobody noticed. Amara was spending the weekend with his mother in Bronzeville, which meant Marcus could work late without the guilt eating him alive. The office was quiet except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of traffic on Michigan Avenue below. Then the fire alarm shattered the silence. Not the monthly test, the real alarm. Loud, urgent, wrong. Marcus grabbed his jacket and headed for the stairwell like everyone else. But something stopped him cold. Smoke, thick and black, pouring down from above. From the 47th floor, the executive level, the floor where nobody worked this late. The floor where Vivian Sterling's office sat like a throne at the top of her empire. The building was evacuating fast. People pushing past him, heading down, getting out. Marcus stood in that stairwell with one hand on the railing leading to safety and made a choice he couldn't explain. He went up, through the smoke that burned his lungs and stung his eyes. Up 12 flights while everyone else went down. When he burst through the door to the executive floor, the smoke was so thick he could barely see. The sprinklers hadn't kicked in. The fire suppression system had failed. Flames licked up the walls near Vivian's office, orange and hungry. Marcus pulled his shirt over his mouth and pushed forward. The door to her office was open, papers scattered everywhere, a candle tipped over on her desk, curtains burning, fire spreading to the carpet and up the walls. And there on the floor beside her chair was Vivian Sterling, collapsed, unconscious. Pill bottles scattered around her like evidence, an empty glass on its side. His mind put it together in seconds. She'd been working late. Stress, panic attack, took too many pills, knocked over the candle, couldn't get out. Marcus didn't think. He just moved. Grabbed her under the arms, lifted her dead weight, checked her pulse. Weak but there. Her breathing shallow and ragged. He got her into a fireman's carry across his shoulders and headed for the stairs. 47 floors, no elevators, just him and her, and 12 flights of stairs filling with smoke. His legs burned. His lungs screamed. Vivian's body felt like dead weight pressing him down. But he kept moving, kept counting floors, kept thinking about Amara and how he'd promised Maya he'd always do the right thing, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. When they burst through the ground floor exit, fire trucks were everywhere, lights flashing red and blue, EMTs rushing over. But their radios crackled with bad news. Multi-car pileup on Lakeshore Drive. All available ambulances rerouted. 20-minute wait minimum. Vivian was awake now, barely, her eyes wild with panic. She clawed at her throat like something was choking her. Can't breathe. Hospital. Please. Marcus looked at Michigan Avenue, gridlocked with Friday night traffic. The hospital was Northwestern, 25 minutes away in perfect conditions. His apartment in Pilsen was 4 minutes. He made the call. My place is close. You need to calm down. Come on, trust me. He got her into his beat-up Honda Civic with the missing hubcap and the check engine light that never turned off, drove through 2 red lights, broke every traffic law in the book. Vivian slumped in the passenger seat, hyperventilating, spiraling. Marcus reached over, grabbed her hand. Hey, look at me. Look at me. You're safe. I've got you. Her eyes found his, blue and terrified and so human it hurt. She squeezed his hand like he was the only real thing in the world. His apartment was everything Vivian Sterling's penthouse wasn't. Small, old, cheap. Furniture from Goodwill and linoleum floors that had seen better decades. But it was clean, and it was home, and it had windows that opened to let in fresh air. Marcus got her inside, sat her on his couch, opened every window, turned on every fan. She was covered in soot and shaking so hard her teeth chattered. The shower. She needed to get clean, to reset, to breathe. He helped her to the bathroom, got the water running warm, gave her privacy. 20 minutes later, she came out wrapped in a towel, still trembling but breathing easier. Marcus handed her the only clean thing he had, his white dress shirt, the one he wore to parent-teacher conferences and church, and any time he needed to feel like more than just a guy barely keeping his head above water. She took it without a word, went back into the bathroom, came out wearing it like a dress. The sleeves rolled up, her legs bare, her wet hair falling loose past her shoulders. Marcus had never seen her like this. No power suit, no armor, no war paint, just Vivian. Vulnerable, scared, real. He gave her his bed. The only real bed in the apartment. He'd take the couch like always. She tried to argue, but exhaustion won. She was asleep in minutes. Marcus sat on his couch in the dark, watching her door, listening to her breathe, making sure she stayed okay. Around 3 in the morning, he finally closed his eyes. Morning came too fast. Sunlight poured through the windows. Marcus woke with his neck stiff and his mind foggy. He heard sounds in his kitchen, cabinets opening, water running, his coffee maker doing its broken, sputtering thing. He sat up confused, turned his head toward the kitchen, and his brain shut down. Vivian Sterling stood at his counter barefoot in his white dress shirt making coffee. Her hair was still damp, hanging loose around her shoulders. She looked comfortable, at home, like she'd been there 1,000 times. Like this was normal. She turned, saw him staring, and smiled. Not the corporate smile, a real smile. Warm, almost playful. And then she said the three words that would haunt him. "Good morning, sweetheart." Marcus's mouth opened. Nothing came out. He tried again. What? Miss Sterling." She walked toward him with two coffee mugs, her bare feet silent on his floor, and sat down on the opposite end of his couch, like they were old friends. "After last night, I think we're past Miss Sterling, don't you?" She handed him coffee. Their fingers touched. Marcus jerked back like he'd been burned. "Last night, you needed help." She looked at him with those blue eyes that weren't cold anymore. "You saved my life, Marcus." That was the first time in 2 years she'd ever said his name. He felt it like electricity. "You know my name?" Something flickered across her face. Shame, maybe. Regret. "I know a lot more than that now." She looked around his small living room. The photos of Amara everywhere. The toys in the corner. The basketball trophies collecting dust. The picture of Maya on the mantle frozen at 28 forever. "I've walked past your desk for 2 years." Her voice cracked. "And I never really saw you. Last night you saw me. Not the CEO, not the boss. Just a woman who couldn't breathe." The moment hung between them, fragile and impossible. Then a key turned in the lock. The door flew open. Amara burst in with her backpack and her big eyes and her voice that could shatter glass. "Daddy, Grandma dropped me off early because..." She stopped dead, stared at Vivian. At the white woman in Daddy's shirt with her hair down and her legs showing sitting on their couch like she belonged there. "Who are you?" Vivian stood fast, suddenly aware of how this looked. How wrong it looked. She opened her mouth but no words came. Marcus jumped between them, his father instincts taking over. "Amara, baby, this is Miss Sterling. From work. She needed help last night. Amara's 8-year-old brain worked faster than Marcus could keep up. Why is she wearing your good shirt? And why does she look like she slept here?" Before Marcus could answer, Vivian knelt down to Amara's level. "You must be Amara. Your dad talks about you at work all the time." Marcus's eyebrows shot up. He'd never heard Vivian mention anything personal about anyone ever. Amara crossed her arms. "No, he doesn't. You don't even know his name." Direct hit. Vivian flinched like she'd been slapped. "You're right, I didn't. But I do now. And I know he's a good man. Maybe the best man I've ever met." Amara looked at her dad, then back at Vivian, reading the room like kids do. "Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" "No," they both said at once. "Too fast. Too loud." Amara grinned the grin of children who know they found something good. "Okay, if you say so." She skipped off to her room, leaving the adults standing in awkward silence. Vivian grabbed her suit from the bathroom where it hung drying, still stained with soot. She changed fast, came out looking more like herself but not quite. Something had shifted, something neither of them could take back. "My driver's been outside since 6. I should go." Marcus walked her to the door. His hands were shaking and he didn't know why. "Miss Sterling." She turned. "Yeah? Take Monday off. Rest. You need it." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'll be fine. I'm always fine." The door closed. Marcus stood there staring at nothing, his white shirt gone with her, his world tilted wrong. Amara poked her head out of her room. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby. I like her. She seems nice." Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. If you're still watching, drop a subscribe right now, because you need to see what happens when Marcus walks into that office on Monday. When Vivian tries to fix what happened with money, and when Marcus makes a choice that will shock everyone. We're just getting to the good part. Would you like me to continue with part 2, the final 4 minutes, to complete the full 15-minute script? Monday morning. Marcus walked into Sterling Global Solutions at 8:30 like he had for 2 years. But everything felt different. People stared at him in the elevator, whispered in the hallways. Someone had talked. Someone always talked. The rescue was all over the company grapevine. Marcus Coleman saved the CEO's life, carried her out of a burning building, Nobody knew about the apartment, about the shirt, about "Good morning, sweetheart." That was between them. At least he thought it was. At 9:15, his desk phone rang. Marcus Coleman, logistics. A voice he didn't recognize. Cold. Professional. "Miss Sterling requests your presence on the 47th floor." Immediately, his stomach dropped. He'd never been to the executive floor, never been invited, never been noticed, until now. He took the elevator up, watching the numbers climb, wondering if he was about to be fired for breaking some protocol he didn't know existed, wondering if saving her life was somehow the thing that would cost him everything. The 47th floor was all glass and chrome and views that made Chicago look small. A assistant led him to Vivian's office. Double doors, mahogany desk the size of Marcus's entire living room, and there she was, Vivian Sterling, back in her white power suit and red lipstick, hair pulled tight, the Ice Queen restored. She didn't look up when he entered, just gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit." He sat. She slid a document across the desk. A contract. Marcus picked it up, started reading, and his heart stopped. Vice President of Operations. Salary $340,000 annually. Corner office. Company car. Full benefits. Stock options. Equity. His hands started shaking. This was 4 times his current salary. This was Amara's college fund. This was every bill paid on time forever. This was everything. Vivian leaned back in her chair, studying him like a quarterly report. "This is your thank you, Mr. Coleman. You've earned it. Your work has been exceptional for 2 years. I've been blind to it. This corrects that oversight." Marcus stared at the number. 340,000. He thought about Amara, about the apartment with the heat that barely worked, about his mother working 2 jobs to help with childcare, about Maya's medical bills he was still paying off 3 years later, about every struggle that could end right now with a signature. Then he thought about Friday night, about Vivian in his kitchen calling him sweetheart, about her vulnerability, about how she looked at him like he was human, like he mattered, like he was more than employee 4739. And he thought about this, the contract, the promotion, the money, all of it offered on a Monday morning, 2 days after she wore his shirt, 2 days after she learned his name. This wasn't a promotion. This was a transaction. This was her trying to package up what happened, make it clean, make it professional, make it go away. Marcus stood up. Vivian's eyebrows raised slightly. "You're making a smart choice, Mr. Coleman." He picked up the contract with both hands, looked at it one more time. $340,000. Everything he needed. Then he ripped it clean in half. The sound echoed through the office like a gunshot. Vivian's face went white. "What are you doing?" Her voice was sharp, shocked, wrong. Marcus dropped the pieces on her perfect desk. "I quit. You can't quit. I just did." He turned toward the door. She stood up fast, her composure cracking. "You're throwing away your career, your daughter's future. For what? Pride?" He stopped, turned around, looked at her with everything he'd been holding back for 2 years. "No, Miss Sterling, for something you'll never understand. Dignity." She blinked. "What?" Marcus stepped closer to her desk, his voice low and dangerous. "You didn't know my name for 2 years. You walked past my desk 300 times and never saw me. Never saw my daughter's picture. Never saw that I was a person. Then Friday night I save your life and suddenly I'm worth something? Suddenly I deserve a promotion? You think you can turn what I did into a business deal? You think you can buy me?" Vivian's hands were shaking now. "I'm trying to thank you." "No. You're trying to make yourself feel better. You're trying to erase the fact that you needed me, that you were vulnerable, that you were human. You want to put me in a corner office so you can tell yourself everything's even now, that you don't owe me anything, that we can go back to you being the boss and me being invisible." Her voice came out smaller than he'd ever heard it. "That's not what this is." "Then what is it? Tell me. Tell me why you didn't offer me this promotion 6 months ago when I saved the company $2 million. Tell me why it took me carrying you down 12 flights of stairs for you to learn my name." She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Marcus shook his head. That's what I thought. He walked to the door, put his hand on the handle. I did what I did Friday night because you're a human being who needed help. Not because you're my boss. Not because I wanted something from you, but because it was right. And if you can't understand the difference between that and this, then I can't work for you anymore. Vivian's voice cracked. Marcus, please. He stopped but didn't turn around. You can't buy integrity, Miss Sterling. You can only recognize it. And you just proved you don't. The door closed behind him. Marcus walked to his desk on the 12th floor, packed his few belongings into a box, and left Sterling Global Solutions for the last time. His phone started ringing before he made it to his car. His mother. Marcus, what happened? They're saying you quit. Baby, why would you quit? He sat in his Honda Civic with the check engine light glowing and his hands gripping the steering wheel. Because some things matter more than money, Ma. Like what? Like being able to look at myself in the mirror. Like teaching Amara that people aren't transactions. Like not selling out the one time in my life I did something that actually mattered. His mother was quiet for a long moment. Your father would be proud of you. Marcus closed his eyes. Thanks, Mom. But right now, I'm terrified. Good. That means you made the right choice. Wednesday afternoon, Marcus was at Amara's school for the science fair. She'd built a volcano that actually worked, complete with baking soda lava and a poster board explaining the geology. Marcus stood there with his phone recording, proud dad mode activated, trying not to think about the fact that he was unemployed with maybe 2 months of savings left, trying not to panic, trying to believe he'd made the right call. Then he heard it, a car engine, smooth, expensive. Wrong for this neighborhood. He looked up and his stomach dropped. A black Mercedes S-Class pulled into the parking lot of Washington Elementary. Tinted windows, chrome trim, the kind of car that didn't belong in Bronzeville. The driver's door opened and Vivian Sterling stepped out. Not in a power suit, in jeans and a white blouse. The shirt. His shirt. Her hair was down. She wore minimal makeup. She looked almost normal. Almost human. Every parent in that parking lot stopped talking. Every teacher turned to stare. Phones came out. Someone recognized her. That's Vivian Sterling, the billionaire. What's she doing here? Vivian walked straight toward Marcus like she owned the place, like she wasn't surrounded by dozens of people watching her every move. Mr. Coleman, we need to talk. Marcus's jaw tightened. Not here. Not now. She looked past him, saw Amara at her science fair table, excited and proud. Then back at Marcus. Please. Just 5 minutes. He followed her to the edge of the parking lot, far enough from the crowd but not far enough to avoid the phones recording everything. What do you want, Miss Sterling? She pulled out her phone, turned it toward him. Security footage. Grainy and time-stamped from Friday night. It showed Marcus carrying her down the stairs, his face determined, her body limp in his arms. It showed him loading her into his car. It showed everything. I've been watching this for 3 days, over and over. Trying to understand why you did it. Marcus crossed his arms. I told you why. She shook her head. No, I mean why you turned down the promotion, why you quit, why you threw away everything when I was trying to help you. He laughed, bitter and sharp. You weren't trying to help me. You were trying to help yourself. Make yourself feel better about the fact that you needed someone you'd ignored for 2 years. She flinched. You're right. What? You're right, her voice cracked. I did ignore you. I ignored everyone. I built a company and forgot what it cost. I became my father. Cold, ruthless, efficient. And then Friday night, I couldn't breathe, and the only person who came for me was someone whose name I didn't even know. Someone I treated like furniture. Marcus watched her, waiting for the angle, for the transaction, for the thing she really wanted. Vivian took a shaky breath. I went home Sunday and I sat in my penthouse overlooking the lake, and I realized something. I have everything, and I have nothing. She pulled an envelope from her bag, handed it to him. This isn't a promotion. This isn't a contract. This is an apology. Marcus opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten letter on expensive paper and a check, $50,000 made out to Amara Coleman Education Fund, and another document, Vivian's resignation letter from Sterling Global Solutions, effective immediately. He stared at it, his brain refusing to process. You're quitting? I'm stepping down as CEO. I'm using my wealth to start something real, something that matters. The Coleman Foundation for Single Parents, financial assistance, childcare support, job training. Everything I should have built years ago instead of just making rich people richer. Marcus looked up at her, searching for the lie, for the catch. Why? Why would you do this? Because you taught me something Friday night. You taught me that power without humanity is just tyranny, that money without purpose is just greed, that the only thing worth having is the ability to look at yourself in the mirror. His hands were shaking now. You're serious, she nodded. I'm asking you to help me build it. Not as my employee, as my partner, as the person who knows what real struggle looks like, what real strength means, as someone who can keep me honest. Marcus looked at Amara, still at her science fair table, still innocent and proud, looked at the crowd of parents and teachers watching this impossible conversation, looked at Vivian Sterling, the Ice Queen, with tears in her eyes and his shirt on her back. One condition, anything. We do this as equals. No boss, no employee, no hierarchy. You learn my world, and I'll teach you what it really means to help people. Vivian extended her hand. Deal. He shook it. Her grip was firm and steady and real. The crowd erupted in applause. Someone shouted. A reporter pushed forward with a microphone. Miss Sterling, is it true you're stepping down? Are you two together? Vivian looked at Marcus, something playful in her eyes. Not yet. But he did lend me his favorite shirt, and I'm never giving it back. Marcus laughed despite himself. The first real laugh in 3 days. Amara ran over, backpack bouncing. Daddy, who's that? That's Miss Vivian, baby. She's going to help us do something important. Amara looked at Vivian. Are you nice to my daddy? Vivian knelt down. I'm going to try my very best to be. Promise? I promise. Amara hugged her. Spontaneous. Pure. Vivian froze, then slowly wrapped her arms around this 8-year-old girl who didn't know about quarterly reports or stock prices or corporate empires, who just knew kindness when she saw it. When Amara ran back to her friends, Vivian stood with tears streaming down her face. She's incredible. She's my whole world. Then let's make sure her daddy doesn't have to choose between pride and survival ever again. Vivian walked back to her car, turned one last time. I'll send the paperwork this week. And Marcus? Yeah? Thank you for reminding me what actually matters. She drove away. Marcus stood in that parking lot with an envelope in his hands, and his life completely changed again. Amara tugged his sleeve. Daddy, is she your girlfriend now? Not yet, baby. But maybe someday. 6 months later, Marcus woke up in a house they'd bought together in Hyde Park. Nothing extravagant. Just home. He smelled coffee. Heard humming in the kitchen. He walked in, and there she was. Vivian Sterling in his white dress shirt making breakfast. Amara sat at the table doing homework. Vivian turned, saw him, smiled that real smile. Good morning, sweetheart. This time he smiled back. Good morning, wife. They'd gotten married last month in a small ceremony with just family. Amara had been the flower girl, and the best man rolled into one. Vivian handed him coffee. I have something for you. She pulled out keys. The Sterling Global building, I bought it back. We're converting it into the Coleman Sterling Center for Working Families. Child care, medical clinic, job training, right downtown where people need it most. Marcus stared at the keys. You're serious, she kissed him. I'm done building empires. I'm building families now, starting with ours. Amara ran over. Are we really getting a baby brother or sister? Both adults froze. Marcus looked at Vivian. Are we? She grinned. Surprise! He lifted her, spun her around, kissed her while Amara cheered. They stood in their kitchen. Not a penthouse or an executive suite, just home, and laughed. Because sometimes the worst night of your life leads to the best morning. Sometimes the woman in your shirt becomes the woman in your life. Sometimes quitting is winning. Sometimes dignity costs everything and gains you the world. And sometimes, just sometimes, good morning, sweetheart means more than any promotion ever could. If this story hit you in the chest, if you believe some things can't be bought, if you know that real love is built on respect, not transactions, smash that subscribe button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear that choosing integrity over money is always the right call. Comment below what you would have done in Marcus's position. Would you have taken the promotion or walked away? Let me know. And remember, the best mornings start with the hardest choices. Good morning, sweetheart. Now go be great.